Welcome, everybody, to the CEO Sales Insight Show. I'm Tony Hughes. I'm co-founder and Sales Innovation Director at Sales IQ Global. Super excited to be doing another show with you today. We're streaming live in LinkedIn, so please feel free to type in any questions that you have in LinkedIn comments. We'll see that come through to us in StreamYard. Please also make sure that you've gone to the Sales IQ Global website where you can register for this webinar. Even if you've just seen this in LinkedIn Live streaming now, please go and register for the event at the Sales IQ website, where you'll receive a link to an evergreen version of this that you can share with people in your network and other members of your team. This is the show where we really seek to provide insights for CEOs that are really trying to drive sustained, profitable revenue growth in their business. And also, we strive to provide insights for salespeople that are really trying to elevate conversations into the C-suite. We know that without doubt, opening opportunities, creating opportunity pipeline, opening the sale is the most difficult and important phase of what we do in the revenue chain. And this will enable you to really talk the language of leaders and engage with the people that make decisions without being delegated away. Before we kick off and I bring our guest in, I'd also really like to thank our sponsor, Trigger.ai. That's Trigger.ai. They're a sales intelligence platform that turns the internet itself into your opportunity funnel, mining for companies that fit your ideal customer profile, and then pushing prospecting funnels to your people based on relevant trigger events that occur. So they enable you to run outreach where there's the highest propensity to buy and with context and relevance, which kicks off the conversation, hopefully with a level of trust. So just before I bring our guest today, Darryl Praill, in, just a little bit of his background. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Agorapulse. And Darryl is a results-driven vice president of marketing, a CMO, who's also got a wealth of experience in sales and marketing, and really bringing those two functions together. He's functioned as the Chief Revenue Officer, and he works very, very closely with CEOs. He's absolutely a one-of-a-kind in the way he operates, the results he drives, and in what he knows. He's hugely respected in the industry. I think he just received an award at an event, I think on the East Coast of the States, where he comes to us now. So it's his evening in the USA. It's our morning here in Australia, where I'm broadcasting from. But he also lives in the C-suite and in boardrooms, and he's responsible for bringing in millions and millions of dollars of funding for businesses. So without any further ado, Darryl, welcome to the CEO Sales Insight Show. How are you?
Tony, I'm doing freaking incredible, brother. How are you?
I'm really well. Tell us a little bit about the event that you're at the moment, and you were just recognized for something, I believe.
It was, don't worry about the event. I was recognized for being a top 50 social seller. I think that's the most recent award I got. But yeah, these awards are like they're just, If I drop your name, then they say, here's an award. Tony. That's how it works.
Oh, you're a funny man. You're a funny man. So, hey, obviously the first half of the conversation we're going to have is really geared toward CEOs. How can they profitably drive revenue growth in their own business? We know that anybody can just cut costs, but it takes masterful commitment and skill and teamwork to really drive growth. But before we jump into some tips for CEOs, just provide a little bit of background on yourself beyond what I just said, and maybe also about the company that you work for, Agorapulse.
No problem. Let's have some fun with this. So myself, I am not your typical sales or marketing or CEO. Well, maybe CEO. I am a computer programmer by trade and education. That's what I went to school for. That's what my degree is in. And when I finished getting the degree, I said, I'm tired of programming. And so my first job out of school was selling photocopiers door to door. So, 21, 22 years old, suit and tie, driving a minivan full of big ass photocopiers, going down, the commercial, strips knocking on the mechanic or the HVAC or the lawyer or the accountant's door saying, you need a photocopier. And that was trial by fire, brother. I did that for 6 months, and all of a sudden I said, you know what? I'm thinking programming is looking pretty good. So I went back and I did that for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And I just I kept on getting called back to the revenue side. So eventually I went to work for a tech company as a sales engineer. And that was my first back foray into it. So I was a sales solution engineer. And then we went in from that, went to product management, to product marketing, back to sales, fast forward several times. And before you knew it, I was a VP of sales at one point, VP of marketing, VP of sales and marketing. And since then, I've been CMO numerous times, and most recently CRO. So I'm all about the revenue. And the beauty about tech is, because of my technical background, it makes it easier for me to sell and see the value prop. That's me. Agorapulse is a social media management company. So we would compete with companies like a Hootsuite or Sprout Social, give you some context. And I've been here a grand total of 4 weeks, boys and girls. And the reason I went is this. Think about this. Think about the world we live in, right? What do we got? We got Russia versus Ukraine. We got, January 6th in the US. We've got Chris Rock versus Will Smith. What do all these things have in common? Social media. And I'm like, I got to get part of that action. So what Agorapulse does is it allows every organization in the world, whether you're a B2B company, you're an agency representing other clients, you're an e-commerce company, to manage all of an organization's social profiles across all the different platforms. And you would use that in both your social engagement, social selling, as well as you would on the advertising side, right? You see those ads for that great pair of men's underwear you have to have. And of course, your first comment is, does the men's underwear come in polka dot and pineapples? And we don't want to miss that comment. We want to say, yes, it does, brother. Here's a link to polka dot and green apples. Who the hell knows? And therefore, we manage that. And the beauty of that is, in the number one line item for any marketer is going to be digital spend, digital media. The number two line item is social media. So for me, it was the right time at the right place, and I'm having a ball.
Wow. Hey, Darryl, we know that there's always been this passive aggressive level of dysfunction. You could maybe call it a sort of passive aggressive war that's gone on between sales and marketing in organizations, where sales organization is saying, why isn't marketing do more to drive quality inbound leads into our organization? And often the marketing team is thinking, well, we're providing lots of funnel for sellers and they're not executing. The world is changing very rapidly from doing outbound initiatives that create inbound. There's just an explosion of channels that people can work in. What are your comments and views on how sales and marketing is converging? Well, we've always wanted that holy grail of bringing it together. That's what that chief marketing role was about. But what do you think's really changed? How is it converging? And how is it changing? What do CEOs need to really be aware of?
Okay, that's a great question, Tony. And it is massively converging, and there's so much going on. So CEOs, what do you need to be aware of in no particular order? All right. So first off, the position of the chief revenue officer is a crucial position, because when you have sales and you have marketing and they have differences of opinion, somebody's got to be that arbiter. And if you don't want it to be you, Mr. or Miss CEO, then you need a chief revenue officer to do that. If you have them separate, they're going to catfight nonstop. So if you're going to hire a CRO, you got to get this right. If you don't, you're screwed. They have to have both sales and marketing experience. If they don't, if it's a CRO who's come through the sales side, you might as well call them chief sales officer, because that's how the pendulum's going to swing. You truly want that balance, because marketing more and more owns way more of the funnel. It used to be the top third and the top half, and now it's the top 2/3 is all marketing, because the buyers are self-educating. They know what they want to. They're in their communities. They're on social. They're talking to their peers. They're getting those virtual referrals. And the time they only come to you often is when they want to, say, here's my credit card. So the role of sales is further down the food chain. So marketing's got a big play there. Don't err on the side of just sales. However, you want a marketing leader who's got sales experience, and you want a sales leader who understands that the modern way of selling is a lot of marketing. I know this is confusing, but I'll give you an example. A good sales rep should be able to tell me their email open rates. A good sales rep should be able to tell me whether an email is good based on the subject line and the body. A good sales rep should be able to tell you exactly the formula they're following to construct that email. Is it ADA? Is it BAP? Is it TTTT? I could go on, right? All that's what used to be marketing, but now sales now. So there's this real blurring going on. How the world's also changed the marketing side, where marketing used to be this intangible, talk to me about your ROI. Well, we had a lot of website visitors and there was a lot of brand, but I could never measure it. Marketers now have become mini accountants. They can tell you exactly the data and the numbers. So they can do the funnel math. So ultimately, if you want to have a very healthy, viable sales and marketing organization, you have to treat it as a revenue organization. You're not pitting them against each other. You're actually creating them as one team, which is why I love the word revenue. And entering that foray now is, instead of just sales and marketing, you now also have the emergence of the revenue ops function. And that's the technology side. So that's kind of like your three-legged stool. And then what I would tell you is you absolutely, positively need a service level agreement, an SLA, between your stakeholders. And it could be as simple as defining what is a lead, how many leads are we going to get from marketing, and then what's sales follow-on activity. They'll follow up within an hour. They'll make 9 attempts using a combination of email, phone, social, text, who else. You have these rules of engagement, and then you need to measure it, which is where your RevOps team comes in. So whenever there's a disagreement, that arbiter, could be the CRO or could be you as a CEO, can then look at the data and say, this was the rules of engagement. Now, Darryl, you're the marketing guy, you didn't live up to it. Or, Tony, you're the sales guy, you didn't live up to it. And now we can move forward.
Yeah. I really like that. And Darryl, I'm starting to see some questions. One, thank you for your question. I'll come to that in a moment. Hey, Darryl, one of the things that I see as I work with CEOs and boards is as a business starts to scale up, they'll start to think about segmenting their roles in the sales and marketing organization. And we know that probably Salesforce was the leader back in the early 2000s in industrializing the sales machine, right? Where they would have, sort of 3 different inside sales roles and field roles. What I'm seeing, and this is a question for you, what I'm seeing is increasingly the inside sales function, that ISR, BDR, MDR, whatever people want to have as their DR de jour. But what I'm finding is that role is increasingly reporting into marketing, right? So what they're saying is whether it's qualifying inbound inquiry or touches of content that we're putting out in the marketplace, we want someone that works in the marketing team to take an MQL and make it sort of a stage 2 SQL that can be passed off to a more senior, expensive seller. And especially given that all selling became inside sales in the last 2 years, given what happened with COVID.
Yeah.
So here's the question. What's your view about the inside sales function? And there's 2 of them, I guess, responding to inbound inquiry and doing outbound to create a lead for a more senior seller. What's your view about either of or both of those roles reporting into marketing instead of sales?
All right. So you won't be shocked, Tony, to hear I believe that's the way it should go. When I took the job here at Agorapulse, as part of the negotiation before I agreed to the job, there was actual negotiation around, would I get the SDR team? I wanted the SDR team. And it was historically in sales, and they agreed to give it to me. For those who are wondering, current stats, depending on who you ask, are anywhere from either 1 in 4 have reporting to marketing to 1 in 3. So that's kind of where we're at these days. 2 and 3 are still in sales, or 3 to 4 are still in sales, but it is growing rapidly. What are my thoughts on it? What are the benefits of that? Okay, so the biggest reason SDRs don't want to be in marketing is because they believe they ultimately have taken that job because they want to become an account executive. And they think if they're in marketing, they can't get access to that role. They can't get exposed to that role. That's why they don't like it. When I have this conversation with people, I can quickly change their mind using some simple statements. I'll say, are you selling in a sales pit like you would see, in days of old? Are you sitting in a pit right now surrounded by 20 other reps and you can eavesdrop on their conversations? And they're like, well, no, I work from home. I'm remote. And I'm like, okay, so the biggest advantage you would have gotten as the SDR, the classic reason they're in sales, is so they can learn from others. But you're not in a pit. You're not hearing that. So that reason's gone. All right, fair enough. You're doing multi-channel selling, whether you're an AE or an SDR, it's all multi-channel. You're doing phone, you're doing email, you're doing social. I said, do you know who makes the content? Do you know who writes the copy? Do you know who owns the message? Do you know who owns the systems? It's marketing. So do you think you would like to have influence on the content that's being crafted? Would you like to know the value statements? Would you want to know, we want to have access to the people who can tell you to optimize your copy to increase your conversion rate? Because that means more money in your pocket. And they're always like, well, yeah, okay, that's marketing. So remember what we said, modern sales reps are more and more mini marketers. So start with marketing and learn that craft as an SDR. And then you can eventually go over to the AE role. The biggest difference between an AE role and an SDR is the level of qualification and kind of the back half of the sale from discovery onward, right?
Yeah.
That you can do in sales, but you need to get your pipeline built first. And I love the expression, pipe is life. If you don't have a pipe, you're dead in the water. Marketing is going to help you build the pipe. Get that skill down pat, then become an AE. Move over to the sales organization, learn how to do a proper discovery, and learn how to actually set the pain and the agenda and control the sales process. It's the optimal way for you to be successful and make the most money, in my opinion. When I say that, 85 to 90% of the time, all of a sudden they go, now you put it that way, I like it. I'm glad I'm in marketing.
Yeah. And Darryl, I really agree with that. One of the frustrations I have as I work with teams is we all know that sellers need to become marketers and marketers need to become better at selling. So there is, there's this convergence. But increasingly today, being successful is all about being able to effectively wrangle a tech stack. So we need technical quotient today to be successful. And what I find is salespeople and sales organizations are nowhere near as competent in building out a good tech stack, designing a process that actually results in methodically driving quality opportunity pipeline. It's very ad hoc with sellers. So I think there's huge value in that inside sales function reporting into marketing because there's just better discipline and there's a better awareness of tech stacks. And Juan Pablo Garcia has got a question here, but hey, you also asked the question about are we aware of Beck Holland? And absolutely we are. I am a massive fan of Beck's. I just think she's
Flip
brilliant.
the funnel, baby.
Yep. Yeah, so she is just fantastic. So if you search for Beck Holland, BECC Holland on YouTube, you'll find some amazing videos. He's also got a question, Darryl. Can marketers really tell sellers the exact numbers? So what are the sort of metrics that marketing can provide sellers that help them prioritize who they're following up and how they're engaging?
Oh my goodness. Okay. That's a great question because it actually ties back into your point about sales reps and technology. They kind of go together. And I have some strong experiences on sales reps and technology. Typically, most sales reps and technology do not go well together. We'll have that conversation. So marketing and actually driving the impact on sales. And I know, Juan, you're talking about visits and impressions there, I see. So here's the thing. It comes down to how good is your marketer. If your marketer is good, they're using proper tracking codes. That would be like a UTM code, for example, right? So you would always see that on your URL at the end. It'd be, salesiqglobal.com, question mark, and then campaign ID equals this or whatever, right? You see all those elements. That's what allows the marketer to attribute where that visit or where that form completion came from. So now you have a lead source. You know the campaign. Because I know the campaign, I know who the campaign went to. So I have the lead source. Maybe it was a pay-per-click, maybe it was organic, maybe it was a post-event follow-up, who knows? And then, yes, I can tell sales exactly what campaign and what lead sources drive revenue. The whole process of attribution becomes a little bit of black magic, and there is no consensus on it. And there are complete software pieces you can buy to try to divine where the attribution goes. And that's really the best way to put it. But I will share this humble statement. Almost every marketer I know goes down that road and says, this is just stupid. And they end up saying, what was the first touch? And I'm going to attribute that lead to that first touch that exposed them to our brand and whatnot. So the answer is a good marketer can do that. Absolutely. The tools are all out there. If they're using any of the marketing automation packages these days, HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce with the former Pardot, that's all built into it. The social media tools can do that as well. But what you will find is that there's a lot of lazy marketers out there who don't do that. And when that happens, then no, they can't.
Okay. Hey, let's wrap this up for CEOs, and then we'll start to have a conversation that we think will help sellers. So I'll just summarize a few things and sprinkle in some of my own opinions. So what we've talked about for a CEO is as you grow and get bigger, because you can only tend to stratify things based on scale, but absolutely consider moving the inside sales function, whether that's responding to inbound leads, or whether it's driving initial outbound to create a qualified opportunity for your more expensive field seller. Consider moving that away from sales to marketing. And that'll actually force sales and marketing to come together, right? Because they're both now responsible for things that link directly to revenue instead of the softer things around brand and visits and impressions. So definitely consider doing that. One of the things I predict in my latest book, Tech Powered Sales, is that there'll be about 30% less field sellers this decade. Capital is, in my view, and I'm seeing Darryl's nodding here, but so capital is absolutely shifting from expensive field sellers that are a little bewildered by all the tech, more to the tech stack inside the organization to drive more effective outbound. And the inside sales role, Darryl very rightly talked about those inside sellers that are maybe seen as junior sellers. Because they're younger, they tend to embrace technology far better than older people. Without being ageist, an old dog that can learn new tricks is insanely powerful. That's Darryl and I. But a younger person will tend to embrace tech. Now, what they tend to lack is the discipline. So if you can create a disciplined marketing process with people that embrace the tech stack, enable them to build better conversations with genuine insights that'll help them break into the world of a busy person. Because we need to be aware that if we build messaging that's just about us, we'll only appeal to about 3% of the market that's looking to actually change right now. But if we can build conversations around a person in their role being able to drive improved results, that's more like about 40% of the market. So we need to build messaging that gets us engaged earlier and gets us engaged around the business case for change, the commercial value, rather than us being treated as a commodity provider of something. So as a CEO, really think about moving inside sales over to marketing, really think about shifting the investment that you're making, less field selling, fewer better people in the field, and put that money into the inside sales and marketing and sales tech stack, right, to try and flood quality inbound. You got any comments on that, Darryl, before we change gears?
No, I mean, you're 1,000% right. And that's part of, by moving, for example, the inside sales function over to marketing as well, there's better qualification taking place at a higher volume, which means you're actually sending fewer leads over to the AE, but they're more qualified, which means you actually need fewer reps too, right? So you can reduce your costs there a little bit. The one thing I will say about this is, on top of what Tony just said, I made mention to this, a lot of CEOs don't fully appreciate, and I've seen this over and over again, the effort and the expertise required to implement and maintain a viable, robust sales and marketing tech stack. I've seen many CEOs say, I don't get it. Before, we just had our CRM before, and it was fine. And we had a part-time administrator. And now we've got, conversational intelligence, and now we got sales enablement, and we got all these other plugins. And it just seems like we've overcomplicated it. We need to go back simpler. And it's not until they actually go into that and they realize, oh my God, we haven't overcomplicated it. We've actually done it. Yes, we've added more elements, but it's dramatically more efficient now and intelligent. The simplest example I can give to you, just for context, is a sales enablement tool. You can get a Seismic or a HighSpot or a GTM Buddy, where when a rep is sending a piece of content to a prospect, before we would just send a piece of content, but with the right piece of technology, that technology will use artificial intelligence and historical conversion ratios to say, oh, you're really at the middle of the funnel, and this is the persona, and this is the ICP, and this is the content you should be using now based on the AI analysis I've done on some of the calls. And here's a smart link. So when they actually open it, they've opened it, or they've shared it, and that becomes a trigger to pick up the phone and say, hey, it's just Darryl checking in, right? So what do you want? Do you want to just do attachment of a document and have it go off into a black hole? Or do you actually want to have the right content for the right person at the right time, and then have the trigger automatically sent to you on when to actually use that as an excuse to follow up and then increase your deal velocity and actually continue the deals so they don't ghost you? Those are simple applications, and most CEOs avoid that, and I'm telling you, don't. That's what's going to be the difference between decent growth and amazing growth.
Yeah, exactly. Juan Pablo Garcia has also got another question around how do we teach young guns the craft? So I'd really encourage anybody watching this to go to the Sales IQ Global website. We've got an amazing Create Pipeline program around how anybody can learn everything they need to know about consistently driving opportunity pipeline. The other thing I'd suggest is join communities of practice, which will really help upskill what you're doing. And Darryl runs an amazing community, right? But there's online communities you can join to really learn these things too, Darryl. Yeah.
There's a ton, right? There's a whole bunch. The Sales IQ Global community, by the way, and the whole platform, I've used it personally. I've had my team use it. It is second to none. I'm not saying that because it's Tony. I'm telling you, it's quality. You want to go to a quality product. But there's other communities out there, right? You can go and join a Thursday night sales. You can go to a Rev Genius or a Revenue Collective. There's a whole bunch of communities out there. Just go find what's good to you. But Tony, can I be provocative for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
So the question is, how can we teach the young guns the craft? And of course, we have brilliant people like Tony here, and we have Luigi Prestonenzi, and we have all these real smart people whom you should be following and reading their stuff and following their videos. That's number one. So what I did with all my team was I forced them to go and actually do what I call a book club every week, where they've gone and consumed a new piece of content from a Tony. And then they've come back to the team and they've reported back, I watched Tony Hughes teach me this. Here's the link. You should go watch it. This is my 3 pieces of advice that Tony gave me. So there's a forced investment of time. But the provocative part is this. It's not just incumbent upon us to teach the young guns. It's provocative. It's imperative that the young guns own it. So a good friend of mine tells a story, sales trainer, where he went in, he's talking to a managing director, and they said, how much is your training? This is how much my training is. He goes, that seems awfully expensive. He goes, does it? Yes. Okay, you should go ask your sales reps if they're willing to pay for half of it. And he's like, well, why would I do that? And he goes, because if they're truly invested in the career, then they would make the investment. No different than a photographer goes and buys a camera. It's the same thing. If they don't want to partially fund their own learning, then you don't have a training problem. You've got a staff problem. So I'll push it back on you there, Juan. Are the young guns willing to step up and own part of their training themselves and put their money where it matters?
Hey, Darryl, I was actually talking to Luigi Prestonenzi, the co-founder of Sales IQ. He's an amazing guy, truly brilliant seller. He runs a lot of our communities.
Yep.
But the thing Louis was sharing with me is the number of sellers who just sign up to our Create Pipeline program. It's $1,500 US to do it.
Yep.
So it's not insignificant, but they sign up, they pay it themselves. They end up becoming the number 1 rep in their company. But what they do is they go to their boss and say, I've signed up to this. It's for my professional development. Will you reimburse it for me as an expense? But I'm doing it anyway. It just shows genuine leadership and a hunger to really be the very best that they can be, to use one of Louis' phrases.
Yeah.
But they become the top reps. So you're right. They just say, I'm going to invest in myself. It'll be great if the company reimburses me, but if they don't, it doesn't matter. I'm doing this anyway. And they make the money 30, 40, 50 fold in additional commissions. One of the people Louis was working with just shared with him last week, she got a $56,000 commission check. And it's all around the concepts that she's been learning and working with us.
The difference is when you pay for it with your own money, now you're invested. You're emotionally, you're personally invested. Now, damn it, I'm going to get my ROI out of this because I pay good money for it. And I don't have that same level of commitment when it's being provided to me. Some do. I don't want to dismiss it across the board, but many don't. So even today, I had one of my staff asking me for training. And I said, let's talk. I'm open to it. But first question I asked is what training are you doing yourself? Just help me understand that.
Yeah.
And it took them back.
Yeah. Hey, Darryl, a good friend of mine, Peter Strokorb, is here in the session. He asks, how do you, Darryl, define a true role of a CRO? Is it just a glorified sales VP role? You sort of touched on that in the opening, but how do you define the CRO role?
So the CRO role, that's a great question, Peter. We should go drinking sometime, and I'll tell you, the real story behind it. In its simplest context, the CRO role is it's the coach of the team. This is the analogy I use. All right. So this is a really lame analogy. Bear with me. If I've got a football team, I've got offense and I've got defense. I got sales, I got marketing as an example, right? And one's on the field and then the other's on the field typically, or one's on one half and one's on the other half, and never the two shall talk. And the role of the coach is to say, no, guys, you got to work together. You do this, they do that, they do that. If we all do our job together, we score, we win the points, you get signed to an amazing contract. Nike puts you on television. You're on TMZ for getting caught with the wrong women. Life is grand. That's what a football coach does. That's what a CRO does too. It's not sales or marketing, it's revenue. So a good CRO unites them on a common shared cause. The next thing they do is they create an environment of infrastructure and training and teaching. The last thing they do is they get out of the way, and their whole job is to run interference so that their team stays out of the noise of every company and can focus on doing deliverables. And the CRO, he absorbs that. It's like at a press conference. Ask me the questions. Don't ask my players. It stops here. That's exactly what a CRO does.
Awesome. Hey, Darryl, let's give some advice to salespeople. What is your advice to salespeople to elevate conversations? You've helped companies raise, huge funding rounds, which is in essence selling. What's your advice to creating the right messaging and the best way to engage to get into the C-suite for a salesperson?
Okay, so this is nothing that Tony and others haven't said over and over again, but I'm telling you, they say it for a reason. Okay, so I'm going to give you some really stupid, simple stuff. Respect my time and my calendar. No, I don't have 10 minutes for you right now. I don't have 10 minutes for you tomorrow. I might have 30 minutes for you in a week or two's time, because 10 minutes we both know is a waste of time, and don't be disingenuous. Okay, we both know what you're doing, so just treat me with that respect. 2, yeah, you're right. I've got a big revenue number to hit this year, and you coming with me and saying you've got a big revenue number, I can help you hit it. No, you can't. You don't know my business. Again, don't be disingenuous. And I know I have a revenue number. That's really not bothering me. I knew that when I took the job. So yes, you think you're personalizing it, making it a pain. It's not really a pain. It just comes with the job description. It's why I have an 18-month lifespan. It is what it is. But what really fries me as a sales leader is that when I trained my sales rep and then I listened to a call and I realized they haven't done the very basics of the discovery process that I taught them, and I'm missing my number because they can't freaking follow MedPick or Spiced or Spin, and it's spelled out one letter at a time what I want them to do, and I listen to it and they can't do that. That burns me. So reach out to me and talk to me about that pain that I'm feeling right now at this moment in time on a daily basis. Darryl, are you tired of your reps totally butchering the discovery process? Are you tired of your reps not asking a question for the first 15 minutes? Are you tired of your reps not having a call plan? Yes, I am. That's personal. right? That's the pain I'm living. So my message to you, short, sweet, don't be disingenuous, don't pretend to be something you're not. And then make it not just personal, make it relevant, make it painful. I mean, you see this in other email formulas. What are some of the words? The first line should be a trigger, or it should be an action, right? You want to evoke an action. Trigger me. Get the messaging right, and I'll love you. You send me a connection request on LinkedIn that says, "Hey, Darryl, Agora Pulse looks interesting. I love your profile. Can we talk? I can help." That just says either you're a bot or you didn't take any time at all to look at who I am. You use boilerplate copy. You don't have time for me. I don't have time for you. It's just the way it works. So just connect with me at a human level, make it relevant, speak to my real tangible pain that shows me you know me, as my good friend Sam McKenna always likes to say.
Yeah.
And I will have time for you. And you know why I'll have time for you? Because I have sales teams myself, or my company has sales teams, and we don't get paid if we don't make our numbers. So there's a professional courtesy and etiquette that I'm going to give to you if you show me that same, consideration. That's it. It's as simple as that. Too many of you are looking for shortcuts. Stop the shortcuts.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much wisdom, everybody, in what Darryl just said. Senior people aren't lonely and bored looking for another person in their life from the land of sales, right? So they need us to respect their time and get to the point. The challenge is, how do you do a bit of an icebreaker that's not all disingenuous or just gets us painted as a seller? And Darryl's dead right. This concept of doing some pragmatic research around a trigger event that's occurred or something going on in their industry or role. But we need a point of view. We need to have some humility in how we deliver it. Yep. But relevance and context is everything when we open. So, Darryl, for all of the salespeople that are here today, what do you think are the qualities or traits that they should really seek to develop as they invest in themselves? What are the things that you see today and for this decade that are going to make people successful? We talked as an example about technical quotient. Become better at using tech stacks. Would be one thing, but what are some other things?
Just in fairness to me for this question, literally every head of sales and every CRO asks this question every single day of themselves, because we want our reps to be the best they can absolutely be. But if you're going to invest in yourself, the best advice I can give you, oh my gosh, there's so many things in my head right now, is, okay, you need to adopt process. Tony, you talked a little bit about that earlier. You talked about the tech processes and stuff. Process could be as simple as time blocking. All right. It could be as simple as having a call plan before you call, so that when I get on if I agree to an actual call with you, that your process says, do we still have 1 hour? Just so I know, here's my agenda. And then you want to lay out process. If you just implement process into your day, into your prospecting, and into your conversations, that will dramatically affect your success. That's number one. Make that investment. Be intentional. Too many of you are distracted by the latest email, the latest Slack message, the latest text message, the latest WhatsApp. And what you end up doing at the end of the day was you were busy, but you didn't actually do anything. Whereas if you say, in my time blocking, I'm going to have 3 or 4 times throughout the day where I'm going to stop and catch up on email and catch up on Slack and catch up on WhatsApp. But the rest of the time I'm prospecting, or I'm researching, or I'm building up my target list, or what have you. That alone will have dramatic impact on you. Next thing I would tell you is truly understand how to ask a question. So discovery is all about asking questions. And if the doctor, when you go to the doctor and he says, "What's the problem?" And you said, "It hurts." He doesn't go, "Okay, here's some aspirin." He goes, "Well, but where does it hurt? Does it hurt when I do this? Does it hurt when I do that? How long has it been hurting?" And he drills down. And eventually he goes, "Oh, you fell on the ice and you knocked yourself out. Okay, so here's some pills, and buy some salt to melt the ice in the future, and this will never happen again," right? It's the asking questions and being curious and going down, 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 down. Too many of you, here's the ironic part. You understand the process, but you don't give yourself permission to be curious because you want to stick to the process, right? We executives know that. I can't tell you how many times I've been prospected and I know they're working the classic bands.
Yes.
What's your situation? I start to give them, and they don't want to hear it. They just want to know if I have budget, because that's how they're measured, right? So implement a process, be curious, learn how to ask a question. Finally, the biggest thing I can tell you, two things. One, know the people you're selling into. The number one thing that we buyers value most is not your product, it's not you, it's that you understand our world. That's the number one thing we value. Because that's about trust. If I ask you a few questions that I can see, my world, I got time for you. The last thing is, I don't trust you, because we're trying to build that trust. So when you reach out to me, whether it's an email or a phone call or what have you, and I haven't even talked to you yet, you know what I'm doing? I'm checking. If you were good enough, you triggered me and you got my attention, I'm going to LinkedIn and I'm going, who is this person? Yeah. If your profile doesn't look good, or I don't see any engagement, or I don't see any content, I don't see any value add in your posts, I don't respond back. So that's kind of a cornucopia of what I would do, but your personal brand and your engagement is about trust. Your process is about your time. Your questions is about understanding and creating pain and building rapport. So now you can actually ask that big ass ticket. I'm going to go, yeah, because you know what? I agree. That's a problem. That's what it's all about. Make the time. Too many of you just look for shortcuts. You look to skip. You're nervous. You're in your head. Whatever it might be intentional. I'm sorry. I went off on a rant, Tony.
No, that's awesome. And one, I agree with you. Mike Weinberg is smiling somewhere. We all know and love Mike. Truly, truly brilliant in the world of B2B selling. Hey, Crystal, I noticed your question here about, have we considered a mutual action plan platform, that really incorporates methodology, in essence, dynamically playbooking the way we sell? Absolutely, yes. We want the customer to be doing actions. If everything's from our side only, that's not a two-way process. So a deal in my mind is qualified to the degree that the other person, the customer, is sharing insider information with us and giving us access to others. If that's not going on, it doesn't matter what your qualification acronym du jour is, MedPIC or BMANTA or BANT or whatever. But if you're not getting insider information and access to others, there's no trust, there's no commitment from their side. Hey, I'm just going to wrap us up, if that's okay, Darryl. Sure. Let's move to the last question. If you were able to go back in time to meet with the 25-year-old self, what advice would you have in that meeting?
So I've been asked this question before, and my answer is always the same. When I was 25, I was so intimidated by the Tony Hughes of the world. I just didn't feel worthy. I was intimidated by the people I was selling into. I just didn't feel like I should even be having those phone calls. That's stupid. So 25-year-old self, believe in yourself. You're smart. You got the job for a reason. Your bosses believe in you. They've given you a computer. They pay you. They train you. All right. They believe in you. Why don't you believe in yourself? Sales, as much as everything we've talked about today, the one thing I've not talked about is what goes on between these two appendages right here, right? What goes on in your head. So when I say believe in yourself, it's having the swagger to pick up that phone call and to know that you've got something really good for them. And if they just listen to you, that you can make their life better. And who doesn't want to make people's lives better? I will tell you this. People like me don't dismiss the 25-year-olds. Often you're more savvy on certain aspects of your product than we are. We look to you to lead us. So know you're coming from a position of strength. Just believe in yourself.
Wow, that is sensational advice. I know for me, I've suffered from imposter syndrome, which is in essence what you're describing. I think many men do. Often we get promoted into a role and we think, am I now being promoted to the level of failure? Can I really carry this off? But selling is first and foremost, as Darryl said, the transference of belief. You need to believe in the fact that we can have a positive impact on the lives of the people that we go sell to. And intent is everything. It's not about us and our commission and our sale. It's about them being able to drive improved results in their role. And if we've got a point of view on how they can do that, we can provide some insights around the strategies that deliver the result. Because at the end of the day, people want to go achieve a result. They then think one layer down, what's the strategy that gets the result? And then under that, they think, okay, how do I enable the strategy? And that's often where we, step in as a seller to help them at that level. But we need to not lead with what we do. We need to lead with them. But, that's the intent. So, Darryl, thank you so much for today. It was just absolutely awesome. Just want to encourage everybody, please visit the Sales IQ website. If you want to know more about selling using technology well, my latest book, Tech Powered Sales, would really encourage you to read that. Please connect with Darryl Praill in LinkedIn. Follow him. His content is insanely good. There's so much to learn. He runs some amazing communities, so plug yourself into those communities. Feel free to connect with myself as well. So on behalf of Sales IQ Global, thank you so much, Darryl, for being here today, and thanks for those that were listening. And you can access the recording of this through the Sales IQ Global website. Thanks, Darryl, and thanks, everybody. Thank you.